Hello students. Today we'll discuss IELTS reading list of headings. This is considered a difficult part. In list of headings, examiners check your ability to skim read the passage and you have to give a suitable title to each passage. It is better to read the headings first. You don't need to read the whole passage because sometimes you find answer in the first line. Sometimes you find the answer in the last line of the passage, and sometimes you find the answer in the second line. So it's better to read the headings first. Let's have a look at the headings that we have today. We are given with 13 different headings. And keep in mind, one question will be solved for you as an example. For example, if we look at this, so in example, he says para F answer 13. So we don't need to look at 13 because the examiner has solved it for you. Para F has already been solved for you. Let's look at the headings. Number one, diverse drinking methods. It means we have to look for the methods how people used to drink tea. Number two, limited objections to drinking tea. What objections were raised against drinking tea? We will look at the passages and will find where it is given. Number three, today's continuing tradition in Britain and China. We will look for the words Britain and China so that we may get our answer. Number four, tea, a beverage of hospitality. We will look for hospitality where it will be given. We will give this heading to that passage where we will find hospitality. Number five, an important addition, tea with milk. So we will look how tea was made first and how they started adding milk. Number six, tea and alcohol. Number seven, the everyday beverage in all parts of the world. Number eight, tea on the move. How tea travel from one country to another country. Where we will find this move, we will give this heading to that passage. Number nine, African tea. This is somehow easy because you have to find only the tea of Africa. 10, the fall in the cost of tea, where the cost of the tea will be mentioned, that will be our answer. 11, the value of tea. 12, tea drinking in Africa. Keep in mind, in the ninth heading, he says African tea. And in 12, tea drinking in Africa. So here he will discuss drinking methods. So there is a difference. And 13, hospitality among the Bedouin. But it has already been solved, so we won't look for 13. Let's read first passage. Tea times. The chances are that you have already drunk a cup or glass of tea today. Perhaps you are sipping one as you read this. Tea, now an everyday beverage in many parts of the world, has over the centuries been an important part of rituals of hospitality. So the word hospitality is given both in the home and in wider society. So let's look at the headings. Read the fourth heading. So our answer is tea, a beverage of hospitality. Let's read the next passage. Tea originated in China and in Eastern Asia. Tea making and drinking ceremonies have been popular for centuries. Tea was first shipped to northwestern Europe by English and Dutch maritime traders in 16th century. About the same time, a land route from Far East via Moscow to Europe was opened up. Tea also figured in America. Tea also figured in America's bid for independence from British rule, the Boston Tea Party. So you have seen that he has mentioned different countries, how tea traveled. So our answer will be 8. We will write 8 in front of B, tea on the move. Next passage. C. As over the last 400 years, tea leaves became available throughout much of the Asia and Europe, the ways in which tea was drunk changed. He mentions the way the tree was drunk. The Chinese consider the equality of the leaves and the ways in which they were cured all important. People in the cultures added new ingredients besides tea leaves and water. They drank tea with milk, sugar, spices like cinnamon and cardamom and herbs. The variations are endless. So here he mentions different methods of drinking tea. So let's look at the list of headings. First heading, diverse drinking methods. So our answer will be 1. We will write 1 in front of paragraph C. Let's move on to D. Question number 4. While European coffee houses were frequented by men discussing politics and closing business deals, respectable middle class women stayed at home and had tea parties. When the price of the tea fell, so he mentions the fall of the tea price. In 19th century, poor people took up the drink with enthusiasm. Different grades and blends of the tea were sold to suit every pocket. So our answer will be 10x, the fall in the cost of tea. So we will write 10 in front of 4. Let's move on to question 5. E. Throughout passage E. Throughout the world today, few religious groups object to tea drinking. This is the topic sentence of the passage, and he mentions the objections. So, if we keep in our mind the headings, we have read somewhere that there were some objections to tea. So, let's move on to the headings, and we will find 2 limited objections to drinking tea. Let's read the passage again. Throughout the world today, few religious groups object to tea drinking. In Islamic cultures, where drinking of alcohol is forbidden, tea and coffee consumption is an important part of social life. However, Seventh day Adventists, recognizing the beverage as a drug containing the stimulant caffeine, frown up the drinking of tea. So, these are the objections. And passage F has been solved. We won't read passage F. Let's move on to the passage G. For over 1,000 years, Arab traders have been bringing Islamic culture, including tea drinking, to northern and western Africa. Techniques of tea preparation have been adapted in western African countries such as Senegal and the Gambia. It is fashionable for young men to gather in small groups to brew Chinese gunpowder tea. The tea is boiled with large amounts of sugar for a long time. So, tea drinking in Africa. They are talking about how people drink tea in Africa. So, our answer will be 12. We will write 12 in front of 6. Tea drinking in Africa. So if you first read the headings, you can see we can easily solve this portion, list of headings. Let's move on to the next question. Question number 7. We have to read the passage H. Tea drinking in Indian remains an important part of day life. Their tea made entirely with milk is popular. So we are adding something in tea. Chai is made by boiling milk and adding tea, sugar, and some spices. This form of tea making has crossed the Indian Ocean and is also popular in East Africa, where tea is considered best when it is either very milky or made with water only. So, we are adding water and milk in the tea. So, let's look at the headings. If you look at the fifth heading, an important addition, tea with milk. So in India, it started to add milk with tea. So we will write 5 in front of 7. Let's move on to the last question. Question number 8. We have to read one passage. I In Britain, coffee drinking, particularly in the formal atmosphere of coffee shops, is currently in vogue, yet the convention of afternoon tea lingers. At conferences, it remains common practice to serve coffee in the morning and tea in the afternoon. Contemporary China too remains true to its long tradition. Delegates at conferences and seminars are served tea in cups with lid to keep the infusion hot. The cups are topped up throughout the proceedings. These are as yet no sign of coffee on such occasions. So he's talking about Britain and China. So let's find, is there any heading which mentions these two countries? Yes, heading 3, today's continuing tradition in Britain and China. We will write 3 in front of 8. So you have seen that if we first read the headings and we keep some important points of the headings in our mind, we can easily solve this portion. This is the end of today's reading.